Gray Fullbuster was born in a village in the north to Silver and Mika. However, at some point when he was still a child, his village would be destroyed by a demon named Deliora. It would be taken in by an ice mage named Or, where she would train him alongside her student Leon. One day, Gray would try to fight Deliora but would fail. As a result, Or would sacrifice himself by using a spell known as Ice Shell that would encase Deliora in ice, but at the cost of her life. Afterwards, Gray would join Fairy Tail, where he would form a rivalry with Natsu Dragoneel, and as far as we know, Gray would remain in Fairy Tail. Esdeath was born in the frontier lands, but at some point her village would be destroyed, leaving her and her father as the sole survivors, where she would spend her childhood in the north. Growing up, she would become a skilled fighter, only to one day return to her village to find her father wounded before succumbing to his injuries. Afterwards, she would join the Empire military, where she would rise her ranks, eventually becoming the general. At some point, the Prime Minister would allow her to choose her Tegu. Afterwards, would gain the title of the strongest in the Empire. By the events of Akame got killed, Esdeath would form a group of Tegu users, which she'll name the Jaegers, hunt down a group calling themselves Night Raid, in order to maintain peace and order throughout the Empire. Afterwards, Esdeath will host a tournament to find a new wielder for Esdeath, where a boy named Tatsumi would win, where Esdeath will fall in love with him. Esdeath will get word about Night Raid being seen near the outskirts, but this would be a ruse despite losing a few Jaegers. A week later, Esdeath will track down Tatsumi and Lubok in the palace, where she'll knock out Tatsumi. During his imprisonment, Esdeath will try to negotiate to get him to side with her, but this would be a total fail after breaking the news that Lubok was killed, and will admit that he was ready to die for what he believed. On the day of his execution, things would be interrupted by Night Raid, where Esdeath would do battle with Susanoo, and after a brief fight, even after going all out, Esdeath would counter everything that Susanoo and the agenda had to throw at her, ultimately freezing Susanoo in ice before breaking his core, putting a permanent end to him. However, Tatsumi and the Emperor would be killed. Despite still feeling grief, Esdeath's final opponent would be Akame, and after a long, drawn-out fight, both would go all out with Akame using her trump card, where she would slice her upper body. Knowing that she didn't have much time left, Esdeath will accept her defeat before encasing both her and Tatsumi in ice before vaporizing the both of them. While once up winter of the long-awaited bout of two ice magic users, with the Ice Wizard Gray Fullbuster taking on the Ice General Esdeath. Now, as for my resources, I'll only be taking both combatants by the end of Fairy Tail and Akame got killed. However, for Esdeath, I'll mainly be sticking to the manga for physical showings, and same applies for Gray. And speaking of which, I'll be taking Gray showings from the 100-year quest, and no other elements from any novels, games, or any side material that I'm not aware of. But more importantly, if you haven't been on Rain's Discord, this match will be once again done under equal stats. And if you don't know how equal stats work, equal stats is done by boosting the weaker character up, but to a point where they can at least compete. Boosting power levels such as magic will be taken as if both combatants' magic outputs are equal, and I'll simply be judging their variety and usefulness of their powers. Now, this time, stats will be equalized in all areas, since Gray skills Natsu, who can react to attacks made of light, and his damage output is about multi-continental, while Esdeath at best scales the lightning speeds, and going off of her strongest attack puts her at island level. Now, with that settled, let's start with their physical capabilities. By the end of Fairy Tail, Gray will be in his early 20s, staying around 5'9" with a muscular build. Due to constantly participating in combat, Gray will be in excellent condition. In terms of strength, Gray at best scales to Natsu, who can send his opponents flying, such as Jalal, who's a magic saint, put him on par, if not above, powerful wizards such as Makarov and Jura, and later Zeref, who's one of the strongest wizards to ever live. Natsu has also damaged powerful wizards such as Hades and Loxus, with Hades scaling above Makarov, and remained unfazed after taking full power attacks from Urza, Gray, Natsu, Wendy, and Lucy, and Loxus, who is going all out. And speaking of which, Loxus, on the other hand, is the second strongest member of Fairy Tail, who flat out ignored attacks from Natsu and Gajio, who were going all out. And after training for the Grand Magic Games, would damage the Sabretooth Guildmaster, Jaema, the same Guildmaster that Sting would one-shot and later, after being enhanced by demonic power, both Sting and Rogue would go on to beat. And the two Dragon Slayers at best scale below Natsu and Gajio, but much like the two, Sting and Rogue are the two strongest members of their guild, and blocked an attack from Acnologia, with Acnologia being the strongest dragon to ever live, who has killed hundreds of dragons and one-shot God Serena, who is the strongest emperor of Ishgard, and scales above the 5 dragon gods, 6 if it includes the Earth Dragon God. But Gray does have feats of his own. Gray is shown to trade blows with Leon in hand-to-hand combat, who's on a similar level to Gray. He can break stone with a punch, and manage to match Ultir in hand-to-hand combat, with Ultir being one of the stronger members of Grimoire Heart, and with his punches sent Anvil flying long range, and Anvil, and by extension the 12 Spriggan, are more powerful than a regular wizard, such as Urza, Gray, and so on. Speed-wise, Gray is very nimble, once again, and is comparable to Natsu, who can fight on par with Jalal, who uses heavily body magic, which is made of light, and later shown to intercept an attack from Sting, who uses white magic. Gray himself landed several attacks on Racer, who could slow down time where it looked like he was moving faster than he, Leon, and Natsu could keep track of, and has dodged a shadow attack from a member of Eisenwald's Dark Guild. Despite being caught off guard by the 100-year clause, Gray's speed blitz the Thunder Legion, who are an elite group of Fairy Tail's strongest members. Durability, Gray is insanely durable. Much like Natsu, Gray can take powerful magic attacks from Josei, who's comparable to Master Makarov, who is one of the 12 Wizard Saints. He's been stabbed by Leon, tank ice attacks from Leon, Anvil, Ultir, and Silver. Powerful attacks from Hades, as I previously mentioned, skills above Makarov, taking attacks from Big Slow, Ultir, count himself his own Ice Blade, tank hits and ice demon attacks from Silver. He remained unfazed by attacks from an enraged Natsu, who was enhanced by demonic power, and this version of Natsu one-shot a member of the Spriggan 12, Demira. Gray has also power through attacks from a one golem, but failed attacks such as a well-placed stab or slash will be more than enough to put him down. By the time of her final battle with Akame, Esdeath will be in her early 20s, still around 5'7" with a slender build. Due to her status as general, she will keep herself in great shape. Due to Esdeath being the strongest of the Empire, strength-wise, she had best skills above Wave, Tatsumi, and Susanoo, with Tatsumi managing to match Akame in a blade lock, and Akame is capable of slashing apart her opponents and large danger beasts, and Wave sent Lubak and Akame flying with a kick, with just his punches sent Sayura flying with his punches several times, and when equipped it with Grand Chariot, managed to match Tatsumi with an evolved Incursio armor. But Esdeath does have feats of her own, such as when she sent Wave flying with a kick, and managed to match Tatsumi with an evolved Incursio armor, and set the same Tatsumi crashing to the ground with a kick. While this may not sound impressive on paper, Incursio is stated to boost a user's strength, and Tatsumi, after getting stronger, managed to shatter a boulder with a single punch, after evolving, cut a kaiju-sized danger beast in half. Speaking of which, Esdeath overpowered both Tatsumi and an amped Susanoo. With Susanoo's trump card, greatly enhancing his physical strength, she overpowered both Najenda and Liane, with Liane being one of the more physically stronger members of Night Raid, who can severely damage her opponents with just her punches, but below members like Susanoo and Bulan. Even as a child, Esdeath has killed large danger beasts with just a knife. Esdeath has also torn through large swarms of soldiers with no difficulty, while training blows with an amped Akame, but more impressively, damaged Incursio's dragon form. Speed-wise, she is very fast. She should be comparable to members of Night Raid such as Mine and Akame, who can dodge lightning from Budo, dodge attacks from Susanoo, with Susanoo being able to speed blitz a swarm of danger beasts, and his speed alone surprised Tatsumi, the same Tatsumi who can keep pace with Akame, with Akame later shown to keep pace with her sister Kurume, who can dodge a shot from Mine while caught off guard, and Kurume is physically enhanced. Esdeath has also reacted to a surprise attack from Tatsumi, speed blitzes a swarm of danger beasts, and both Tatsumi and Susanoo at once, and later kept pace with Tatsumi with an evolved Incursio armor, and can consistently dodge lightning attacks from Budo, once again kept pace with an amped Akame. Durability, Esdeath can take quite a punch. She's taken hits from Tatsumi with an evolved Incursio armor, the same Tatsumi who will go on to destroy the Supreme Teigu. She remained conscious after cutting off her own arm. However, she doesn't have a high amount of endurance like Liane or Budo, and a well-placed stab will be more than enough to put her down. Despite Esdeath having feats going her direction, Esdeath is unfortunately nowhere close to hanging in the same ballpark as Gray. Even when highballed, Esdeath still falls short. Now, don't get me wrong, the best that Esdeath has going for her is a slight durability advantage. As for magic durability, Gray holds the obvious edge in that area. Gray has taken powerful destructive magic attacks that will come out as multi-continental plus, while Esdeath, even if you were to highball her and say that her durability is large country level, Gray will still have the advantage due to consistently being on par with Natsu, the same Natsu who tanked hits from Zeref in Acnologia. Speed is not even debate. Gray scales Natsu, with Natsu intercepting an attack from Sting, and Natsu is on par with Urza, the same Urza who managed to clash with Suzaku, who speed blitzed Natsu and later swapped hands who will go on to defeat the Moon Dragon god Selene. Strength is basically the same story. Natsu and Gray are on par with each other. Natsu defeated the two dragon gods who are stated to be on a similar level to Acnologia, putting Natsu, and by extension Gray, at multi-continental plus. However, even when lowballed, Gray at the end of the day has overpowered strong opponents such as Dark Guild members and trade blows with Natsu, the same Natsu who could damage demons from the Book of Zeref and has consistently reacted to attacks made of light, while Esdeath at best scales lightning speeds, which is only a third of the speed of light. Nonetheless, I'll be buffing Esdeath to Gray's light speed in multi-continental levels, but still giving Gray's the edge in physical capabilities. And while we're here, I'll also be giving Esdeath the edge in weapons for a rapier since Gray doesn't carry any weapons. As a brief side note, I won't be mentioning Gray's improved attacks that he began using by the time of the Gray Magic games, mainly because they're quite literally the same attack, just improved. However, he will have access to them in the fight, though it won't change anything if I'm being honest. Gray's magic is dubbed Ice Maker magic. Gray can create inanimate objects. Ice Lance allows him to fire off small spikes. Ice Make Battle Axe is a powerful projectile slash. Ice Make Geyser creates an explosion. He can also make shields to block attacks, blades, a hammer, clones, but the strongest of his maker magic is Ice Shell, an attack powerful enough to encase powerful demons in ice such as Deliora. However, the spell does cost the user their life, so he would only use this as a fluke. But this isn't all he had. His strongest magic comes from his Demon Slayer magic that he gained after defeating his father Silver. This allows him to deal powerful attacks, strong enough to slay demons and even damage demons from the Book of Zeref, or allow him to instantly freeze anything. Ice Devil's Rage unleashes a powerful ice beam. However, this even gives him a resistance to the ice magic. He can create a small sword and a bow. When in this form, Gray can also create a mist that's strong enough to freeze Bane particles and Markier's vines. But his magic isn't infinite. If he uses it too much, he will run out of magic power unless he can consume ice magic, which will also boost his competitive performance on top of replenishing his magic supply. Esdeath's Teigu is dubbed Demon Extract, which allows her to manipulate ice. In terms of offense, Esdeath primarily prefers icicles, but is shown to create a giant boulder, ice walls. It can freeze their opponents entirely by either physical contact or by stabbing them. Her trump card consists of Mahaptama, which freezes time for 17 seconds, but this ability does have its flaws. The first is that it takes a lot out of her, and the second, physically stronger opponents can break out of Esdeath's time stop. Ice Cavalry creates ice soldiers, which she can store her energy in so that she can withdraw to power herself up for her third trump card. And speaking of which, her third trump card is dubbed Ice Commander-in-Chief, that unleashes all of her gathered up power into the atmosphere to engulf an entire area as large as a continent in ice. And due to her nature of ice magic, she has shown to have resistance to cold temperatures, but her Teigu does have its drawbacks. Esdeath herself admits that using her ice magic too much, or using large quantities of it in a short amount of time, takes a lot out of her. Now, due to equal stats, Esdeath should have this in bag, right? Well, no. Now, to break this down bit by bit, in terms of flexibility and what it can do, Gray eclipses Esdeath in every way possible. He can create blades, cages, shields, projectiles, and much more. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. Winter, are you high? Esdeath can freeze time in an entire continent. How the hell does she not compare to Gray? Simple. Ice Commander-in-Chief will be completely useless because Gray can simply consume it. Now, I did consider assuming that Gray can simply consume ice magic, much like how Silver did to Crazy Ice, but he hasn't replicated this feat in his fights with Leon, Ultier, or even Invel, so I'll have to exclude it for now. Ice Cavalry can be countered by Gray's ice clones, and unlike Esdeath, Gray can do this without strain. Now, that leaves her first trump card, Mahoptima. Now, can it save her? And I'll have to say, maybe? Now, there are two ways to look at this. One, Esdeath herself in detail explains how Mahoptima works by freezing time, and due to Gray having a resistance to ice, you can argue that this will be ineffective. Or two, View tossed me breaking out Mahoptima as him breaking out of it with brute force. But there's one big problem with this, since Mahoptima does fall under time manipulation. Time manipulation has been shown to work on fairy tale characters. The only character who has shown to break out of time manipulation is Ultier, who is easily above both Esdeath and Gray. Hey, Future Winter here. Now, I did want to bring up two things so this doesn't get brought up in the comments. Winter, can Esdeath simply take out Gray before he breaks out his Demon Slayer magic just by freezing him through physical contact? And to put it bluntly, no. Between the two, I would argue that Gray has better resistance to ice magic. The only wizard who is shown to freeze Gray is Akame, and not just Gray, but Natsu at the same time. The same Natsu who defeated Zeref and two of the dragon gods, who are comparable to Acnologia. And Gray will go on to defeat Akame. And the second is that Gray could theoretically break out Mahoptima, as I mentioned previously, but the only character in Fairy Tail to break out of Time Stop is Natsu, after being enraged on top of being amped by demonic power. And Gray not only kept pace with him, but swapping hands with an amped Natsu. But this is just a hypothetical on my part, so by all means, take this how you will. But the one ability in Gray's corners that won't be a factor is Ice Shell, since the ability costs its own life and the fight will only end in a draw. However, in character, Esdeath would not activate Time Stop right off the bat. She would only use this ability if she literally had no other option, dodge or counter an attack. In character, Esdeath would only stick to close range and projectiles. However, with Gray holding the majority advantage, Gray by default takes the edge in magic and special abilities. Just like all characters who use weapons, I'll be using Star Wars Lightsaber Fine Forms to better analyze and illustrate how Cabana approaches combat. Of all the members of Fairy Tail, Gray will be the smartest tactician, one compared to Natsu. As an overall tactician, Gray is primarily a ranged fighter, however he is capable of getting physical in combat, which seems to be a slugger type boxer. This form teaches the user to use hard, powerful punches to incapacitate opponent. But his hand-to-hand skills will be high, since Natsu is the best hand-to-hand combatant in Fairy Tail, and is comparable to the Dragon Slayer, but below other powerful Fairy Tail members such as Gildarts and Loxus. As an overall combatant, Gray is a ranged fighter. To test Wars, once he has a proper grasp of his opponent's fighting style, he capitalizes on the opening granted to end the fight as quickly as possible. However, opponents who are physically stronger or have superior magic could get the upper hand if he can't outfight or overpower his opponent. Growing up in order to survive, and due to her status as general, Esdeath will have a successful military career. When it comes to her swordsmanship, Esdeath will be proficient in Form 2 Makashi and Form 5 Genso. Makashi trains a user in footwork and precision strikes slips through opponent's guard, specifically for blade-on-blade combat. However, the form does lack power behind its strikes, but she will fix this with Form 5 Genso. Genso trains the user to block or parry before counterattacking with a devastating assault. Now, I did debate if I should give Esdeath Form 6 Neomon but decided against it since she hasn't shown any elements of following up her attack with her magic and blade skills like other characters that I've used, such as Sasuke, Genesis, and Adam. As an overall combatant, Esdeath specializes in close quarters, dominating and even holding the upper hand against the likes of Akame, Tatsumi, and Susanoo, and has shown to quickly adapt to an opponent's fighting style, picking out their flaws and capitalizing any openings provided. However, she is more than willing to fall back on using range attacks to deal with opponents. Both Gray and Esdeath are skill combatants of their parties. Now, in terms of close quarters combat, Esdeath will have an advantage due to her being a skilled swordsman with proper experience. When it comes to range combat, Gray has an advantage since Gray has been trained in that area for years. Now, that said, Esdeath should have advantage, right? Well, not exactly. Esdeath is only in her element when she has the advantage and can control the fight, while Gray can fight under these conditions. Not to mention, Gray has consistently beaten better trained and skilled opponents, such as members of dark guilds, powerful mages, assassins, his own father, who eclipses Gray in every way, Leon, who Gray was trained alongside, who has more creative magic than Gray, Invel, who has better experience, Margir, a demon from the Book of Zeref, who is the strongest out of all of the members of Tartaros. Not to mention, Leon, Invel, Ultir, and Silver have better ice magic than Gray. Now, to be fair, I'm talking about in terms of firepower and creativity. And despite this being filler, Gray mentions how he and Natsu are different. Natsu is stronger, however, he is smarter. This is consistently evident throughout the series of Fairy Tail. Natsu rushes in without a stretch and simply tries to brute force his way. Now, don't take this the wrong way. Natsu isn't a bad fighter, since he's quick to adapt to an opponent's fighting style, while Gray takes a probing offense to feel out his opponents despite merely acting as a ranged combatant. So, between the two, who's going to hold the advantage of the fight? And that'll just happen to be Esdeath. Esdeath is holding the advantage for the biggest reason is that she specializes in close quarters. Now, in range combat, yes, Gray would have an advantage, but Esdeath is going to catch on to this and will try to make this fight physical. And Esdeath has gotten the upper hands on opponents who use abilities to boost their physical performance, and some of the best fighters aside from herself. So, can Gray get around this? And I have to say, yes, he can. But it's not going to be an easy fight for the wizard. To simplify this, Gray is a smart tactician and a calmer version of Natsu. But the biggest flaw with this is that simply Esdeath is a sadist who toys with her opponents in order to witness their pain. And against Gray, you can't leave any openings, and this would allow the wizard to come up with a plan to catch the general off guard after realizing he can't beat her in close quarters. But nonetheless, between the two, I just slightly favor Gray. Esdeath may be more skilled, but something that the wizard hasn't already seen, can already perform himself, or can simply count with his stronger and more improved magic. So I give the very, very slight edge in combat skills tactics to Gray. Let's just say this takes place before the end of Akame got killed, and Gray has traveled to the Empire to search for the Gold Dragon God. However, in exchange, Gray had to assist Night Raid with the revolution. In turn, they'll tell him anything that he wishes to know about the Gold Dragon God and how to find it. Gray encounters Esdeath on the battlefield in the capital that is now in ruins. Despite her opponent not being Akame or Tatsumi, he would have to do for now. Gray takes a combative stance while the general draws her rapier. Esdeath attempts to close distance, but Gray fires off a barrage of ice spikes. Esdeath manages to dodge most of them. An ice user. Interest, come on, entertain. Gray follows this up with an axe slash, forcing Esdeath to jump over his attack, which is what he wanted her to do. In midair, Esdeath sends off a barrage of icicles, but Gray forms an ice shield blocking the general's attacks. However, upon doing so, Esdeath dashes forward trying to stab Gray, who manages to weave in between her attacks. At the last moment, Gray forms a pair of ice blades. The two match each other before breaking away. Very nice. Now it's my turn. Having a feel of her opponent's fighting style, the general closes the distance, slashing at Gray, but the wizard just keeps out of her range before ducking under a stab meant for its rope and counters with a hard jab across her temple before jumping back and activating Ice Geyser. The general creates an ice construct in time to evade in order to get out of Gray's range. With the given distance, Esdeath sends out spikes towards the wizard, but in turn Gray creates an ice wall. The general doesn't relent, creating a swarm of ice soldiers to break through Gray's ice wall. Seeing this, the wizard matches Esdeath soldiers with his own ice clones. Setting off a barrage of crescent blades, the general creates an ice wall that slices through her wall like butter. But while her vision was blocked, Gray took time to activate his Demon Slayer mark, tearing off his shirt, revealing black pattern on his body. As the ice wizard creates a short sword, Esdeath smirks, knowing that this was her kind of dance. Two close distance clashing, which creates a powerful shockwave that shatters the ice construct that they create around them. But it's Gray who manages to force the general back and kicks her in her midsection. Seeing an opening, the general slashes Gray across his upper body, causing him to recoil back. Now Esdeath sees as many openings as possible, and realizing that her opponent is not skilled in close quarters compared to range combat, every slash and every dodge is countered by a slash or kick, and whenever Gray would try to give distance, she'll form ice constructs counter and limit his movements. But the wizard doesn't let this slow him down. The wizard fires off a barrage of lances, to which Esdeath scoffs and simply matches with her own icicles. However, this is what Gray wanted her to do. Gray sends off a powerful beam of ice, forcing her to form ice around her hands and feet to glide up. Now absorbing the energy from her ice soldiers, Esdeath activates her trump card, Ice Commander-in-Chief, setting off a powerful snowstorm that covers the entire capital in snow, but is left stunned when her opponent isn't even phased in the slice as he consumes her magic. Taking a certain stance, Gray activates Iced Shell as magic circles form around the general. As she slowly begins to freeze, Esdeath uses up her last amount of energy to activate Mahoptima. Breaking free, Esdeath slowly makes her way towards the Ice Wizard. This was a fun battle, however it seems that you are too weak for this world. But I must congratulate you for making me use up my trump cards. Just before time starts moving again, Esdeath impales Gray, who simply stares back in shock as he is frozen before being shattered by the general. However, when her guard is lowered, an ice arrow shots her back. Looking behind her, she sees none other than Gray Full Bust. The one she had taken out was simply an ice clone. What had happened was when her sight of him was blocked by his ice wall and Gray had formed his ice clones, he simply swapped places with one, while he fought for ice soldiers and she fought his ice clone and simply looked for an opening to exploit. Realizing this, Esdeath admits to Gray that he had won as she drops her knees before dropping on her back, succumbing to her injuries. And it was that as Gray Full Bust, the Ice Mage, the winner. Well, I'm gonna be real. This actually turned out better than what I had anticipated for. Now, physical abilities is something that I already went over inside and out, so special abilities is actually pretty straightforward this time around. However, if anyone needs me to elaborate on anything, by all means, feel free to comment below because I'll only be going over their abilities that would really matter the most and would overall affect the fight. And that of course is Mahoptima. And no, this isn't an ace in the hole that will bail Esdeath out every single time. The only time that this will work is if Gray were to go all out from start to finish, or if he were to be caught off guard. But against someone like Esdeath, after he has seen of what she can do, Gray will begin to proceed with caution. Now, if you want to ignore that and say both are blood-dusted, then Esdeath will come out on top. Both will go into close range, and eventually Gray would unfortunately be overwhelmed. So how does Gray win, you may ask? Simple. Gray is a more smart tactician who would not play his hand right away. And unfortunately, Gray simply has a larger variety of creativity, ranging from close range to range. Unfortunately for Esdeath, her magic is a bit basic compared to Gray. Now, don't take this the wrong way. I am by no way implying Esdeath is weak or has a big ego. Esdeath suffers the same weakness that Norman Osborn suffers. She's skilled and can control the fight when she has the upper hand, but her sadism is something that holds her back in most cases. Now, to give credit where credit is due, Esdeath has what it takes to bring down Gray. All she has to do is keep the fight at close range and simply pressure him enough and not let him out of her sight, because all it takes is that one opening for Gray to exploit. From there, simply keep him there until he takes too much damage or is worn down enough to deliver a well-placed impalement. Unfortunately, that outcome is just 1 out of 4 outcomes in Esdeath's favor. And for the final nail in the coffin, combat skills was actually very, very complicated this time around because it really matters. However, it's one that Esdeath just can't seem to take. Now, Esdeath is not a bad fighter. It's simply, how do I word this? Her interest is what holds her back. Esdeath is a sage who takes pleasure in her opponent's agony and struggles, And after thinking about it for some time, Gray is an overall better strategist, and has shown to actively think on his feet when his approach can't work against an opponent, and Esdeath is no different than someone like Silver, Ultir, Leon, or Anvil. So at the end of the day, Gray simply wins more times than not. He has the magic, the experience, and the tactics to do so. So what you ultimately get is a remake of Gray vs Silver. And to make this clear, I'm not biased towards Gray or Esdeath. I actually like these two evenly. I had a blast reading Fairy Tail is 100-Year Quest and Akame Got Killed. It's simply that Akame Got Killed tends to be overestimated. And I'll tell you now, there are plenty of characters that will solo not just Esdeath, but the entire Akame Got Killed verse, even with equal stats. 1. Characters who physically eclipse them, even under equal stats. 2. Characters who are simply built different. And 3. Characters who can flat out tank what's thrown at them. But to be fair, I see Gray winning about 6 out of 10 times. The times that Esdeath does win is only after she has worn down Gray enough, limits his movements by keeping him in one place, or simply keeps the fight strictly to close quarters. But with that said, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter if you care about that, and I'll see you all next time.
But pathetic as it may be, and they sure are, I still prefer to side with the underdog.
Long time no see, Greed. If you had any sense at all, you would have stayed out of my sight for good.
Yeah, my avarice tends to make these decisions for me. And right now, I want your life, Wrath.
Open it.